We are diving straight into an incredibly grim, dark Gothic fable today, an explainer that brings Nietzschean philosophy to life and explores the absolute most terrifying corners of the human psyche. We're going to use this fascinating source material to dissect an epic psychological battle. It's really a story about the masks we wear, the perfection we endlessly chase, and the haunting reality of what happens when we try to completely scrub our lives clean of the messy dirt of existence. So brace yourself because we are heading straight into the shadows. We open from the perspective of the buoyant jester. He's celebrating what he absolutely believes is the great evening, his total victory over this frozen halo of order. He's out there literally shouting, "Howl then, you cold wild wind of reality, shatter the stained glass and rattle the rusted bells of the belfry." Right? He thinks he's won the whole shebang. He genuinely believes his guttural laugh has shattered that rigid, flawless control once and for all. It's this massive moment of triumph. He's breaking free from cold restraint and just plunging headfirst back into the chaotic, vibrant reality of living. So we've got these two entirely opposed forces. Think of the Clockwork Sovereign as this tight, Faustian fist, just ticking away toward an optimized eternity of, well, total nothingness, perfect purity. But from the jester's point of view, this pursuit of perfection is completely futile. To him, the sovereign is basically an expensive clock in an empty room, strangling himself with his own tight clenching of control. And then you have the jester. He is the messy pulse of being, this cold, wild wind of reality. He represents life in all its unpredictable, unstructured glory. He's mocking that rigid control, totally convinced that it was exactly that tight clenching that brought the sovereign down.
But hold on a second. The jester might be throwing a massive victory party, but we really have to ask ourselves a terrifying question here. Has that clockwork abyss truly dissolved into the messy pulse of being? I mean, you might think you've conquered the expansive clock in the empty room. You might think that frozen halo is shattered for good. But the source material throws a wrench in that. It warns us not to be so naive. Because this victory of the great evening, it might just be an illusion. That rigid control didn't just evaporate into thin air. It mutated.
The sickness actually lingers through a process called atavism. Think of this as a super dark diagnosis. It's a psychic regression forced upon the so-called last man. And what happens is, this regression creates a shadow of Übermensch. This shadow still carries a deep creed of negation right in its marrow. Even though the Clockwork Sovereign looks dead and gone, this new shadow is still out there, desperately seeking a divinity that is completely detached from the dirt and hunger of primal reality. It becomes what the source calls a smiling corpse of false redemption. It's a static monument to the exact avoidance of life that the jester thought he'd conquered. So, here's the kicker. That defeated force of absolute control, it didn't die, it just retreated. It pulled back into this deeply unsettling place known as the windowless void. Now, this isn't just some empty space. We're talking about a metropolis of rotting thoughts. It's this windowless room of perfect purity where time just completely stops, mainly because there's nothing left to record except self-negation. It acts as a gateway to internal horror and essentially a waiting room for a really dark, lingering spirit. The void isn't the end of the road at all. It's a strategic fallback position for that obsession with flawless control. And what exactly is happening in this void? Well, our source describes it as a dark strategy of philological archaeology, which is a pretty chilling concept when you think about it. The force of negation retreats into this windowless void of records, and from there, it just starts to dig. It waits for the absolute perfect moment to peer through the darkness, digging through the layers of the psyche to uncover repressed terror. It's this highly calculated, incredibly patient excavation of everything the jester thought he had left behind in the dust. And the tool it uses for this dark excavation? The uncanny mirror. Now, this isn't your everyday bathroom mirror. This is the tool of the Pale Inquisitor. When you look into the uncanny mirror, you're definitely not seeing some divine or pure image staring back. Instead, you're met with these hollow sockets. And those sockets reflect your own deep-seated, deeply repressed terror. It's a genuinely terrifying artifact because it doesn't trap your ego with external rules or chains. No, it traps you with the paralyzing grip of your very own internal horror. You might think you've fully integrated your dark side, but this mirror is just waiting there to prove you wrong. Which brings us to the really terrifying truth revealed by that mirror, the truth of proportionality. The text lays it out plain and simple. Sovereignty and dirt are proportional. What does that actually mean for our Gothic fable? It means that the higher you dance on your muddy riverbank, or the higher your palace of mirrors climbs, the deeper its foundations literally have to plunge into the dirt of the primal unconscious. You simply can't have this towering, pristine sovereignty without a massive corresponding foundation of messy, primal dirt. The mirror forces the ego to realize that trying to completely separate the two is just a fatal illusion. And from this realization emerges the true antagonist of the story. It's not the clockwork sovereign anymore. It is the ink blot of negation. It straight up mocks the jester, saying, "You fail to see that I am the ink blot of negation, the final black residue of an obsession that cannot be unwritten." This ink blot is a permanent internal shadow. It tells the jester point blank, "I don't die." It just waits in the void. And the truly terrifying part of all this is that this ink blot is writing with the very reality that the jester thought he had successfully reclaimed. The text contrasts this entity so beautifully with another figure known as the truth-telling monster. Now, while the truth-telling monster might anchor you to your own rot with a rusted hook, really forcing you to face your physical decay, the ink blot is way more insidious. It whispers, "I am the star of negation that turns your sacred bread into digital decay." The ink blot silently, inevitably blots out your star of high time. It takes the things you hold most sacred, those moments of pure, buoyant life, and just quietly rots them from the inside out with absolute negation. So where is this ink blot hanging out right now? It's waiting in the reflection. It waits in the windowless room where the warrior sat, totally paralyzed by perfect purity. It preys on that ink-smeared saint, or that noble warrior who becomes so incredibly obsessed with maintaining a stain-free existence that they end up paralyzing themselves. The crazy thing is, the very pursuit of perfect purity is exactly what gives the ink blot its power. It just sits there in that windowless room of the psyche, waiting for the exact second you try to be a little too perfect. This brings us to the absolute core tragedy of our Gothic fable, the ultimate hidden fault. This is the chilling realization of an unlived life. By avoiding the messiness of reality, by so desperately trying to keep your hands clean of the primal dirt and hunger, you know what? You might actually achieve your goal. You might successfully save your life from sin and stain. But the ultimate, horrifying fault is that in doing all of that, your life was never actually lived at all. That intense fear of the living stain is a sickness that marks the soul eternally. You become locked in what's called terminal identity stasis. It's a permanent, unmoving trap. You become a static monument. You have actively chosen to trade your vital blood, your chaotic, beautiful pulse of being, for an optimized, completely empty eternity. You literally become the smiling corpse of false redemption, trapped in the windowless room forever, just to avoid getting your hands dirty in the real world. The jester might feel incredibly buoyant in the moment. He might genuinely think his wild wind of reality has won the day. But our sources remind us that every single wave eventually breaks against the shore of the void. The ink blot of negation will return, not as a physical clock ticking in a room, but as a silent reflection in the uncanny mirror. And when it finally does, it leaves you to answer one final chilling question. Have you ever truly lived at all? Or do you secretly fear the stain of being? Definitely something to think about the next time you try to curate a perfectly spotless existence.